Okay. Okay, so we are recording. Okay, great. So first thing that I wanted to comment on, and I'll put these links in the chat, is that we have a list of students. So basically last week on the office hours, Eloisa asked if we could make a list of students and your contact information, but we can't really share contact information because, well, I'm worried about confidentiality and how people might use that. So I created this document. Anybody can put in their contact information, but I don't have a column for your email because, again, I think that don't feel comfortable about sharing that. But you can put in there your LinkedIn profile or some other social media, because then somebody can contact you and you can either through like LinkedIn, and you can accept or not accept. So let me see if I can put this in the chat. So 2 people have filled it in so far, but they didn't put in their LinkedIn profile or any other social media handle. So if you just put your name, that's not really serving the purpose, because the purpose is if people want to contact each other outside of the class, that they can use this document. Does that make sense? Are there any questions? Is this confusing? Okay. Now, for some reason, I'm going to stop share and reshare because I couldn't see the doc. Okay. Okay. Second thing that I wanted to mention is that as I come across resources, I'm putting them in this file. And again, I'll put this in the chat. So for example, yesterday we had a webinar speaker, Dr. Hao Zhang from the Explore program in Thailand. And she talked a lot about litigation in China, environmental litigation in China. And this morning she sent me a short article on environmental litigation in China, and I posted it to the resources. So this is just a place where I post resources as I come across them that might be of interest. I also have some extra tools for your final project in this document. And one student, now I'm forgetting her name, but from Oregon, also sent me a link to her website for her organization, which is a advocacy organization working on air pollution. And so I put that in. So if you send me through WhatsApp or through the Civic Ecology Lab email any resources, I can put them up there too, the resources that you think might be helpful to other students. All right. So moving along, webinars. Next week, I'm really excited because we have Mercy Abutsa from Nigeria. She started Climate-Do Nigeria, or Climb-Do, I think, Nigeria, an NGO in Nigeria working on climate issues. She's now a graduate student at Cornell. And since we have so many Nigerian students in the class, I think this is going to be really interesting to many of our students, but actually all of our students, not just those from Nigeria. So, and again, if anybody wants to unmute yourself, go ahead, because this is informal. Webinar reflections. I was looking at some of the webinar reflections this morning, and some of you are obviously using AI for your webinar reflections. It's a little bit, first place, the way the AI style of writing, anybody can tell that you're using AI in most cases. But then when I have 2 students who have exactly the same reflection, it becomes even more obvious that you're using AI. So for webinar reflections, it's really not appropriate to use AI because it's your personal reflections, like what was your reaction to that webinar? So if you've already done a reflection and you used AI, I think it would be great if you posted another webinar reflection on a different webinar. All right. Now, what I want to do is stop sharing and then share another resource. Okay, I'm not sure how this is going to work because I'm going to share. Let me just get it up and then I'll share it. Sorry about these delays. Okay, can you see this? It says
Yes,
meet.
we can.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, Gira Haran, sorry for my pronunciation, had asked a question about, is meat consumption in India an issue we should worry about? And this was in regard to that Meatless Mondays information in one of the lectures. So if you go to Our World in Data, and you can just search ourworldindata.org, or to get this information, I searched Our World in Data, India meat consumption. So this is I don't know how many of you used Our World in Data, but I think it's an amazing resource. So for example, we can look at per capita meat consumption by type of meat in 2021. And then I can put whatever countries I want in here. So you can look at India, and then up here you look at the type of meat consumption. So fish and seafood is the most popular in India, according to this, are the most consumed. And then the meats that we're really concerned about in terms of beef, emissions, are beef and sheep and goat, which are relatively low in India. And I can edit countries and regions here. So for example, a lot of you are from Nigeria. So I'm going to add, I'm getting there, Nigeria to this graph. Hey, David, do you want to mute yourself? Or unless you want to ask a question. Thank you. Okay, so Nigeria, there you can see what the meat consumption is there. All right, so then I think what's important is to look at the meat consumption over time. So is it increasing? And here I have India, and you can see it is increasing, but then recently it decreased. I don't know if that was due to COVID or what that decrease is due to. I don't know if anybody from India has any comments on that. And I'm going to edit regions and countries again and see if we can add Nigeria. So now you can see Nigeria. It's interesting. It's quite a bit higher than India. And note for world consumption. Okay, yeah, that's world consumption. That'd be combined. I don't think that's average world consumption. I think that's combined. So anyways, you get the idea. And then, I can keep going down here. Number of animals slaughtered, livestock counts. I think number of cattle is interesting because, and again, anybody from India can sort of correct me if I'm wrong. But you can see that India has a lot of cattle. So I think that you have a lot of cows, but you're not killing them. You're eating dairy and then just sort of taking care of them because that's a cultural tradition. But cows, just by their presence, are emitting a lot of methane. So that would be something to think about in terms of the climate issues. And then we can go through poultry, pigs, and then we get down to dairy. So you can see that dairy production, or this is milk production, high in the US and India in particular. Per capita per capita milk. So actually it's not that high in India, it's much higher in the US. And in Kazakhstan, interestingly. And then you can see in some European countries, France. And then, these black ones, Oman has very high consumption, huh? Okay. So anyways, you get the idea. And again, I'm going to stop share. And I'll put this resource. I'll put this resource in the chat. So does anybody have any reflections or comments?
Yes. Can I?
Sure.
As you as you spoke about India regarding the meat consumption, dairy consumption, and the amount of cattle. So I am from literally South India, where we raise cattle. Every house there will be a cattle, one or two, not many. So and we don't consume meat, beef. Only we consume dairy product from the cow we have, not even buying from the outside. That's the traditional system. So on these cows, mostly people have, some people have only livelihood is cow. Daily they will sell the milk. That is their only income for them. So I don't know how to stop talking with them, telling that don't raise the cow. It is a global warming. It raises global warming because that is the only source of income for them. But considering that Amazon region, South America, and other region where cattle rearing is the biggest in the big farms.
This is
Where
Ashwini. Sorry, Girdhar. Please go ahead.
yes. So in other countries, maybe in the Western countries, other countries, the cattle rearing is the biggest business where they raise cattle in large scale. So probably the concept which you are telling can be working over there, but I don't know how to consider that same topic in India, because that's why I have I raised a query where the meat consumption is less than 5 kg, and as you told, the trend is getting decreased. And I went, why it is decreasing? I saw that because of education. People are getting more educated in South India regarding, I mean, in India, stating that this non-veg, I mean, consuming the flesh, the meat, beef, anything is harmful for their health. That is the reason there is a reduction in the consumption of flesh, meat, beef, anything.
Thank you. Ashwani, did you have a comment on that?
A couple of things. One, I think the reason that beef meat consumption is listed so high on carbon footprint is the way in which it is raised in most of the world. We don't have big feeding lots. We don't have CAFOs. We don't have large herds of cattle. It's really a family industry. And the footprint of a cow is very different from the footprint of a herd of cows. And I don't think we're taking that into account. Also, the fact that in India, amongst Hindus, beef is taboo. You would be killed if you ate beef, as people knew you ate beef in India. It's a big bone of contention between Muslims and Hindus. Muslims will not eat pork, but will eat beef. You cannot buy beef anywhere in India. Never, anywhere. The only kind of meat you can buy in India that is non the other kind is buffalo, water buffalo. So water buffalo is a whole other story. Cows are considered sacred. Buffaloes are fair game. So you can buy buffalo meat if you're Muslim, but you can't buy beef anywhere in India.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you, Ashwani. Yeah, so, and thank you, Giridharan. I think the issue, in the first place, our world of data also has information on food emissions by different countries. So I would suggest searching that. And, you know, if you find something, share the link in the chat. I think one of the biggest problems with cows is the methane emissions, which is going to be in any cow, really, no matter how it's raised. So the issue is, one, how they're used. So if you raise a cow and then they're killed to eat beef, like in the US, where we eat a lot of beef, the emissions per pound of protein or per kilogram of protein is really high, because just by the fact we have so many cows and all these cows are emitting methane, and then they're being killed and we're raising new cows, there's a lot of emissions. Dairy emissions, and you can look this up on our World in Data and elsewhere, are much lower per pound of protein than beef emissions. In India, when people maybe don't have a lot of sources of protein, for example, they're not eating beef, dairy is probably a really important source of protein. And again, as Girid Haran was saying, it's also an important source of income. Those cows, though, still are emitting methane, and there's a lot of cows across India. I do have a student that I've worked with at Cornell, and he's also from India, and he's from New Jersey, Ashwani. So I don't know if he's born in the US or born in India, but his family lives in New Jersey now. And he is doing some work on looking at different feeds that would reduce those methane emissions from cows, and looking at production of dairy in India. So if anybody writes to me, either again through WhatsApp or through the Civic Ecology Lab email, I can see, his name's Savi, I can talk to Savi and see if he might be interested in sharing with you about his research that he's doing here at Cornell. So thank you, Ashwani. That's kind of surprising that India is the largest emitter of methane in the world, and that livestock are responsible for 48% of all methane.
There's a huge difference between per capita and per country.
Yeah.
The biggest debate in climate with China and India is they are the biggest emitters, but not per capita.
Mm-hmm. Is US the biggest emitter per capita? Or I know that
China and the US are neck to neck.
In per capita. Mm-hmm.
Per capita.
Okay.
Actually, I'm sorry. The US is way above everybody else per capita. As countries, China and the US are up ahead.
Okay.
Think about it. 350 million people in America. 350 million.
Mm-hmm.
And 1.3 billion people in India and China each. So we're 0.3 on their 1.3. And we're consuming 40% of the world's resources. Everybody wants to live like the US. Where are we going to go? Which is why Bill Rees, the fellow that came up with the carbon footprint, the ecological footprint methodology, his argument is that the problem is not climate change as much as it is overconsumption.
Right.
If you take the argument of disease versus symptom, climate change is a symptom. The disease is overconsumption. I buy it. I had big arguments with him, but I buy it. It's true. We're just using too much stuff. And if everybody wants, in India, for instance, in Delhi, it's a long time since I've been there, but almost every family in Delhi has 2 cars. It's absurd. There's no roads, there's no infrastructure, there's no emission controls, but everybody wants to live like the US.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate that input. Lola, you have your hand raised. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me well?
The connection's not great, but we will do our best to try to hear you. Yeah. Connections. I think you should probably turn off your video because the connection might be a little better.
Now you hear me better.
You sound like a robot.
It's not. I have really views kind of. I don't know. It's about the classes run.
Hey Lola, we can't really understand you. Could you put something in the chat what you wanted to share? Because the audio is really
maybe it's a
poor.
problem of the microphone.
Maybe it's your microphone. What do you think she should do, Fish? Like, is there anything she can do?
Laura, if you have an alternative microphone, it'd be great to try that, because we can see you through the video very well. I think it's not a problem of the bandwidth.
Oh, okay.
But maybe, yeah, maybe just use text. It's easier.
Okay. All right, Fish, is there anything I'm missing?
No, sorry, I'm late a little bit. I see you already, did you already share the contact list?
Yeah,
Okay, great.
I did. And maybe you can just put those different, I didn't share, well, share the contact list again. So did you get my email with all the
Yep.
links? So if you can share the contact list, share the resources, share our world in data. Anyway, and the one thing we haven't gotten to is the projects, final projects.
Right, okay. Sounds good. Okay, I'm gonna share the 3 links in the chat.
Okay. Huh. It's interesting, the comment in the chat about Nigeria consumes about half of all West Africa. But again, getting back to what Ashwani said, maybe Nigeria has more than half the population of West Africa. I don't know. The address, Lola, is civic ecology at cornell.edu.
I was just asking the email. We're not sending the email yet.
Oh, to
So-
upload your project? No, I think it was a question. I think
Yeah, the email will be sent on
that you can
June
ask.
11th.
Yeah, no, she means email. You can ask questions about your project anytime. Using this email.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Okay, any other comments? I was going to move on to the final projects, but happy to continue the discussion about topics we've covered so far, or anything else that you all want to ask about or want to share.
Yes, hello.
Yeah?
It's Diana Rios. I think because we start a little bit late, that we're gonna finish the course a little bit later. And I'm wrong? Not the like we're gonna take a week. When the materials will be until what day in the
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Gianni, from New York City and from Puerto Rico. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on the call and being in the course. And also a great activist with Climate Reality. The materials will remain up until September 15th, but that's just for you to go back and look at them. Everything's due July 5th. So you can't, for example, put anything in the discussion after July 5th, and you need to submit your projects, your final projects, before July 5th. But if you're just, working on your advocacy plan, for example, after July 5th, you'll still have access to the course materials if you want to go back and read something.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Okay, I am going to talk about the final projects. Oops. Oluwaseun, do you want to unmute yourself? Oluwaseun, you can unmute. You have your hand. I see you have your hand up. Okay, we'll try. Maybe he or she will come in later. Okay, you all can see this now? So this is about the final projects. I'm going to go through it, but again, stop me at any time if you have a question. And Fish, maybe you can watch for the hands up in the chat. Thank you. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, please submit your final project by July 5th. We do not accept late submissions, and you can submit your project in English or Chinese. So once you have completed your final project, which is a advocacy plan, then you can save it as a doc or a PDF and upload it to a Qualtrics survey that will be sent to your email. And I scheduled that to go out June 11th, so next week. But if you want to actually start working on your plan, what I'm reading you now is posted on the edX platform under final projects. So if you go through contents, kind of go below all the 4 weeks of contents. No, I'm sorry. I think it's actually in about this course, so click on about this course and it's sort of at the bottom of it, or maybe sorry, Fish, maybe you can go look at edX real quick. It might be in 2 different places, or somebody else and put in the chat where it is, or just unmute yourself. In your climate advocacy plan, there's 7 things that I want you to look at. So one is describe your organization. There was some discussion last week, I think it's Jackie, I think she's on the call today, about not working with an organization. And that's fine. If you're not working with an organization and you're just going and, I think as Jackie mentioned, advocating in front of legislature or whomever, then that's fine too. But I just think most of us are going to be working with an organization. And I do think we can be, at least most of us are more effective if we work with an organization. So that's why that's there. You can see that throughout the course, I've emphasized working with organizations, and that organizations often work together as part of coalitions. Second, the climate issue you will address, whether it's meat related, transportation related, whatever. The desired policy outcome, what policy change you would like to see. And this could be in your business place, in your university, or in your local, state, provincial, or federal government, or I think it's Walter, but I'm not sure. Somebody's working at an international level, so you can look at international policy too, if that's where you're working. The advocacy strategy you will participate in, so that's writing letters, lobbying. A lot of you, I think, were putting in the discussion that you're interested in public awareness campaigns, which is fine. If you do a public awareness campaign, I think it'd be still great to think about how that relates to policy, because there's a lot of public awareness campaigns that are more related to individual behaviors, like stop wasting food, lower meat consumption, take public transportation. They're geared at lifestyle actions, and we really want to think about the connection of those public awareness campaigns to a policy. Your role or contribution to the strategy, and then the means that you would like to use to evaluate your progress on reaching the policy outcome, and then the timeline. And optional, number 8, apply one of the policy change frameworks that we discussed, or that are on the edX platform, readings and lectures this week. So the things like coalition, advocacy coalition framework, narrative policy theory, those, you can apply one of those policy change frameworks or theories to your advocacy plan. That's optional. All right. And then I have some tips. Focus on one action that you can take within 3 to 6 months. I saw in the discussion for last week that a lot of people had lots and lots of actions. I think for the purposes of your plan, it would be great to narrow it down to one action that you could reasonably have an opportunity to work on. As I mentioned above, tie your action to a desired policy change. And then assess your progress, if possible, towards influencing that policy. All right. And then, so then in this document that's on edX Edge, so I have a little template here and tell you how to upload your file. So you're going to want to upload your file. Well, save your file first as a PDF or a Word doc, and then you will receive a link that's actually a survey. It asks you for a little bit of identifying information, and then it has an opportunity for you to upload a file in the survey. It's a Qualtrics survey, and you'll receive a personal link in an email on July 11th. So look for that. All right. Are there any questions? Nicole, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. So here on this project here, it says 500 to 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Somewhere else in the course materials, it says 500 to 800 words. So I just wanted to clarify which one is accurate.
It's 1,000, and I apologize. We copied this from previous courses, and sometimes I don't change it everywhere. But you can have 1,000 words would be about 2 pages single spaced.
Thank you.
And if you have pictures, you can have more than 2 pages.
Okay, thank you.
So you can include images if you want. Thank you. Any other questions or anything in the chat? Or Fish, did you want to add anything?
So what happened if Walter who's talking, probably showing iPhone, but is
Yeah.
Walter who is asking this question?
Mhm.
I just want to say good morning to everyone. My question is, you said it is important that we do this final project in collaboration or in cooperation with an organization, right?
Mhm.
Is that true?
I would recommend that, but if you are doing something alone, as I mentioned, we had an example, somebody shared that last week. Just put that, this is something that I did on my own.
Okay. So what is the how can I say? How are you going to evaluate? What is the level of credibility that you give to somebody who's not doing the project in collaboration with the organization? Is it a mandate? Is it compulsory or is optional?
It's optional, strongly advised, but optional.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's clear.
Okay. Did you want to share why, what you're thinking about that?
Yes, thank you so much. Sorry, I guess my network has not been stable, so I couldn't speak when you called earlier. Sorry about that. I wish to ask the question based on our reality in Nigeria on the high level of consumption of meat. Though on my own personally, for those around me, I've been trying to educate them to say to them consumption of meat is not too good. But at a general level, because looking at the level of consumption is very high. So my question is that how do I go about it, or how can this be done in a way that, personally, I feel there's need for aggressive campaign on that. So how do I go about all these, or are there NGOs, or are there probably bodies that are into it already that could key into, like the aggressive campaigns on these? That's my question.
Yeah, thanks for your question. And how do you pronounce your name?
Seun, Oluwaseun.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Oluwaseun,
Yeah.
Oluwaseun.
Oluwaseun, thank you. First place, I want to say that, we talked earlier that Americans per capita have the highest carbon emissions. So and we also have very high meat consumption. I realize that meat consumption is very much dependent on the country and what other sources of protein you have. So in countries where it's the only source of protein and people really lack protein, then I think we need to respect that and not necessarily try to influence them. I don't know that much about the situation in Nigeria, but maybe other people can share. What I would search first, is there a Meatless Mondays campaign in Nigeria? Because apparently that's in a lot of
Yes.
countries.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hussein Aroka. I'm from Nigeria as well. And I totally agree with what Oluwaseun talked about meat consumption in Nigeria. But looking at the advocacy around maybe like reducing the meat consumption from the local level, I think it will take a very long while. For what she's asking about aggressive, maybe like campaign, I think what is the best is to meet with the government to find a way to bring about a policy that reduce the production from the beginning, because we have abattoirs, we have companies that produce this meat and sell in wholesales to the retailers in the local market. So if we can curtail the production in large quantities per time from where it's being produced, I think it will go down to the consumption level. And one other thing I want to talk about policy constraints in Nigeria is about alternative. When you tell people not to consume meat, which perchance they might find it affordable, they might find it suitable for them. But if you wanted to understand that this is not good for the environment, this is not good for the health, there must be an alternative for them to fall back on. I think that's one of the best ways we need to look at, to design a solution, that particularly policy solution, that will give them an alternative for them to fall back on. Not just to take away meat that they're eating from their mouth, because it will feel somehow aggressive. For myself, I've tried saying this at a meat seller shop in Nigeria here, and believe me, the person was looking at me as if I wanted to take away his business. And it has a lot of dimensions. You can't stop someone that is making ends meet from selling meat to people to just stop doing that because of environment. That's not the front burner concern for him. But from the policy angle, from the government, they have to understand that this is our own core value, particularly about safeguarding the whole ecosystem in Lagos, in Nigeria, and the likes. How do we make sure that we improve food security itself? And everything really boils around starting from the government down to the local community, because if we can capture it from the production side, I believe it will go down to the consumption area. I think that's my contribution to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Hussein.
Yeah.
Onia, Onia
Thank
has
you.
to stand up, so I'm gonna go to him first. And to be honest, Hussein, the audio wasn't great, so I had a little problem understanding. So Onia, Julius, if you heard better than I did, if you can maybe summarize Hussein's argument too, that would be helpful, and then make your own comment.
Okay, yeah. My name is Julius Onia. From Nigeria. Yeah, it has been a culture in Nigeria. When you go to a restaurant to eat and you did not buy meat, they look at you as someone that does not have money, or that is not doing well. So it has been a culture in Nigeria that meat is a sign that you are doing well. Like what my other colleagues in Nigeria said, we need aggressive campaign. And the best way we can do this is by working with health workers. Like one of the things in Nigeria is that they are more conscious of their health. When you tell them that do this, you will live long, they will want to do it irrespective of the implications on the environment. So they are more concerned about their health. I think what we can do in this situation is to work with health workers. Those are the best people who probably in our subsequent program, we need to bring in more health workers to let them realize that the effect of this. So it will be easier to pass the message to people that if you do this, this is the effect on your health. So they are more conscious about their health. And I must tell you categorically well that meat, too much of consumption of meat is not good for health. So that's it for now. Thank you.
So thank you, Julia. So you're suggesting emphasize health in a campaign.
Yes.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I
Yes,
just want to say that, again, it depends on their income level, right? For people who don't have other sources of protein, meat might be an important source of protein for their health. And I'm assuming that this is a bigger issue for urban Nigerians or just urban people in general, maybe than people who are more subsistence farmers. So just something to think about. But is that you again, Walter, who have your hand up? You need to unmute yourself. It shows up as iPhone. Okay, so Garrett Haran, did you mean to share your screen?
Yes, regarding the per capita protein consumption,
hello.
I was
Okay, so
just trying. I was just trying
Walter, you
to
can go
share it.
next. Go ahead, Garrett Haran, go ahead.
Okay. So you can see the picture, right?
Yeah, yes, we can.
The daily per capita protein supply.
Mhm.
As you mentioned that protein supply is lesser in the US, but you can see it was more. I think it is more in the subtropical ranges and the above. But in the equatorial region, it was lesser, the protein consumption. But most of the cattle rearing happens in the equatorial region, the tropicals. So as I mentioned in the my chat regarding the food mile, the meat are produced in this equatorial region, tropical region, and it was being transported to the developed countries like European nations and US. So this is my point.
Okay, so you're talking about food miles. Actually, you could probably look up food. Thank you, Garrett Haran. You could probably look up food miles. It might even have stuff on that in Our World in Data. For most foods, it's not a big part of their carbon emissions. It's foods that are flown in frozen, like, we get berries from, I don't know, Chile or something in the winter in the US. Of course, berries don't have a very high emissions in their production, but when we're flying them frozen to the US, that's where food miles comes in. I'm not sure how meat is shipped when it's shipped around the world. And I do think a lot of the high consumption meat countries actually do produce meat, but of course there's Brazil and Argentina and those countries that are also exporting a lot of meat, including to the US. So I'm not sure about what the food miles relative emissions are for meat versus the emissions that are just coming from the meat production, and particularly the cows' emissions through burping. But I'm sure you could find something on that and share it. So thank you. And let's go to Walter. I think that's
Yes.
iPhone.
Yes. Yes. When we are talking about the consumption of meat, I think we can always look at different points of view. Of course, there are many reasons to reduce and stop eating meat. First, because of health issues, environmental issues. And meat is it reduces less consumptions of meat. It actually reduces the risk of developing a lot of diseases, heart diseases, strokes, because meat has a very high concentration of sulfuric acid. But at the same time, looking at the environmental point of view, meat production is resource intensive and contributes to climate change, pollution, and carbon emissions. It also requires large grazing areas. Okay. But if we look at the other side, sometimes people consume meat because it is what is there. If you are poor, you don't have much option. For instance, let's look at the reality of Africa. People just eat what is available. If you don't have money that you can afford, for instance, vegetarian food, which it at some places is much more expensive, you have no choice. You eat what is there. So I think the way forward is always to probably implement some workshops at universities, schools, churches, organizations, and advocate first for the reduction of meat because of health effects. I think from that point of view, or from that way, we can actually bring some awareness to people in terms of meat consumption. If we look at USA reality, there is every kind of meat. Here, people have a lot of choices. You eat what you have or what you want to eat because you can afford, because you have money. You can actually choose what to eat. But there are regions that people don't have this capacity. So that's what I think about this subject matter.
Thank you. And Samuel, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Samuel,
just to keep
are
it.
you the person that was working with the international organizations?
Yes.
I think I
yes,
mentioned
am.
it Walter, but I think it was you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So for me personally, I think meat consumption to an extent depends on, like the last speaker said, the location. But however, the major issue is we are telling people to stop eating meat. What are you telling them to start eating?
Mhm.
I think that is what we should really focus on. I carried out a project last 2 years ago, right, in a local community, and I spoke to them about agroecology,
Mhm.
which focuses more on plant-based food.
Mhm.
But my major focus was on fruit crops like cucumber, watermelon, vegetables and all, and which I know could be rich in protein. For instance, soybeans. Apart from soy, we also have moringa leaves, moringa seeds. These are highly rich in protein. You can also make your research. And, when we tell people about stop eating meat, it's not like facing out of meat entirely, but I feel we can also shift the focus for countries that depend mostly on meat. You can shift the focus to considerable amounts of eating meat. Instead of taking it every day, you can say, okay, you know what, I can take it twice a week, Mondays and Fridays, within just twice a week. I feel by so doing, it reduces the amount of consumption, and they can also balance it with some plant-based protein. Funny enough, in the US, I read, because I'm taking a professional course on ESG investing, and I read something most interesting in the US, that plant-based food is taking over the food system, which I know very soon is going to surface. And it's contributing to about 40% of the total food chain in the US, including where we have plant-based milk, plant-based meat, and a whole lot of it. Developing countries may not be able to afford that, or they may not even be able to afford that, but they may not be aware of this plant-based food. But looking from within, from the local farmers, from the things we sell in the markets, to to distribution, I feel it goes a long way. So when we talk about meat consumption, which could be arguably important, it is good we also look at what are we substituting this for. And for countries that are highly dependent on meat, is there any way we can reduce the consumption rate of meat in these countries, in as much as we know the health impacts, the but also there's also benefit because it is proteinous. This is protein, right? Yeah. So while we also look at the demerit, we also look at merit. Okay, since you don't have any substitute, can you reduce the rate at which you consume this product? Maybe twice a week. For here in the US, where I am is Iowa Fairfield. My school is highly vegetable, like highly vegetarian, highly at the epic. But recently, students were not really comfortable with that. And we say, you know what? How about I brought up that advocacy thing for I came in here last year, and in September I started saying, how about for students who come from countries where they highly consume meat, and here we get more
Hello.
vegetables and vegan food. Yeah, I'm almost done. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, so I was like, how about we change this culture instead of eating vegetables every day throughout? How about we do consuming meat twice a week? You know, I feel that is moderate. And right now, we eat meat twice a week for those who are not vegetarian. For those who are vegetarian, you don't have to depend on meat, but we eat meat twice a week and we go on vegetables all through subsequently. So meat twice a week and vegetables throughout. And I feel that is a great balance. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Samuel. Appreciate that. Mila or Mila? Do you want to unmute yourself? You have your hand up. Yep.
Yes, thank you. I'll see if I can turn on my. It's nighttime in my place.
And
It's not
you're
so
where?
clear.
You're in the Philippines or where?
I'm from the Philippines, yeah. And we're exactly like 12 hours. I think I'm
Okay.
12 hours ahead of your time. So anyway, yes, I have been a vegetarian for 5 decades already, 50 years ago, since my college days. And what first attracted me is I became a vegetarian when I read the book of John Robbins. He was talking about the inefficient utilization or inefficient food provider, how cows are very, very inefficient. They can only provide like for every 1 pound of meat, that's half a kilo, you need so much energy, and you need to give them so much food, just to be able to produce 1 pound of meat. And that with that 1 pound of meat, um, if we only don't that 1 pound of meat is actually equivalent to the grains and legumes that can be eaten by 50 people in one day. And at the time, I'm an agriculture student at the time. So I was thinking, of course, in the Philippines, it's a very agriculture country. And so I thought I wanted to take this course to actually help improve our food production. So I said, oh my God, simply being vegetarian, I'm already making more food available to my countrymen. So I have my family. I've raised my family, my own family, daughter has her own children already. I have met large number of friends who are also vegetarians, raising their own children. And some of them are good sportsmen. Some of them are like surfers, taekwondo, they're very good. And they're all vegetarians. And in fact, there are many sports people who are vegetarians. So as far as protein is concerned, when I became a vegetarian, that was the main concern, of course, of my elders. Like, how will you get enough protein? And I'm not a sickly person. My allergies became less when I became a vegetarian. So as far as the protein issue is concerned, it is not such a big a deal. I raised my daughter, and she was very healthy. Her friends are healthy. I mean, it's just a matter of knowing what is good food, what is balanced food. Now, because of this, Can you still hear me, or should I
Yeah,
turn
but
off my?
we need to wrap up soon because it's only 2 minutes until the end of the
Oh,
session.
yeah.
So
So for short, and when we promoted, now because of this, we all feel healthy, but we never say become vegetarian. The only thing that how we're promoting it is that eat well, eat healthy food.
thank
Because
you.
for other people to say being stop eating meat, right there, they get, like it repulses them when you say stop eating meat, but tell them this is healthy food. So even when we promote it in other communities, in schools and in offices, we say these are healthy burgers, so
Yeah.
so that in that way it's really like that's like what the previous speaker was saying, like we really have to say that this is healthy. We have to incorporate wellness in trying to stay away from eating meat. That's all.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Well, great way to end up. I just wanted to say I didn't get through one thing that's on that project, your final project document, and that is that I'm planning to facilitate an ongoing learning community around policy advocacy related to climate after the course ends. So look for that and think about whether you want to continue. And I'm not exactly sure the form, but I'm open to suggestions, and you can put them in the WhatsApp group, or you can put them in the civic ecology at cornell.edu email. We may have meetings once a week, periodic seminars, another WhatsApp group, I'm not sure, but just be thinking about if you'd like to continue the community informally after the course ends, and whoever does is welcome. And we will be focusing on your progress on implementing your advocacy plan. So hopefully it's a group that can support each other as you try out different things and help each other to figure out what works and doesn't work. So that's it. It's 10 o'clock. Fish, did you have anything to add?
I think you pretty much covered everything. I think only Nico was thinking about doing a advocacy campaign, awareness campaign. So I suggest maybe not just her, everybody to think about your initiative to connect with the idea of policy advocacy together. So it's kind of the challenge for the from this course. Yeah, so which is not trying to promote awareness, not just, but going further to think about the perspective of policy change.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we covered that, sort of the relationship between policy awareness campaigns and advocacy campaigns and how they can interact with each other in week 2. So if you have some questions, you can go back there to some of the lectures and readings. All right. Do you have a Chinese session now?
Yes, we will. Yeah, we will stay.
And you're host and everything. So the rest of us, or you want me to check?
Am I right now? Yeah, can you set me as host?
Okay.
Since you're
So
leaving.
thanks, everybody. Garrett Haran, send us something through the WhatsApp group because it is after 10 o'clock. So we look forward to having hearing your thoughts. And also next week, we'll have another office hours.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you. I'm going to make you host. There we go.
Okay, and you can perhaps stop recording.
Okay.
Oh, I think when you're done, it will stop.
Okay.
Automatically. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna record from my end here.